First things first is I'm Donnie and I'm a realist. And I want to talk to my entrepreneurs today. And I want to talk to you today because I know if you're looking to become successful and you don't know the Pareto Principle, then I know you are literally overworking yourself and you're spending lots of time and money on things that don't really work. I know this because I once did this. And most entrepreneurs who start out overwork and spend lots of money on things that don't actually work. And that's because they're not aware of this law, right? And once I became aware of this law, it literally changed my life because it taught me that success in anything, whether it's in business or whether it's in life, is nothing but a game of efficiency. Before me and my wife learned this, before we became aware of this principle, we literally spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars on things operating in the business that was never going to get us the results that we were actually looking for. I mean, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing, money on employees, money on hiring the wrong people, money on things that never even came to fruition at all. I mean, we spent lots of money on things that were never going to work. And we kept spending money on these things that wasn't ever going to work because at that time, we were not aware of what the Pareto principle was. And this is why principles are so powerful. Principles actually helped us to reverse the course we were going down. Like, I think they say most of all businesses, a lot of businesses, not most of all, but like I'll say around 60 or 70% of businesses fail within their first 5 years. Why is that? It's because most of us entrepreneurs are never taught principles. And because once me and my wife start understanding these principles that lead you to success, then we start looking at things from a different lens. It's principles. It's principles that helped us reverse course. The more principles you come to understand, the easier, listen to me, the easier business in life becomes. Principles are just fundamental truths. They're like universal laws, right? Principles help you to discover literally basically how things work and how they work for everybody, how they work for anyone. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter what your intellect's like, your IQ. It doesn't matter your color. It doesn't matter your race. It doesn't matter your background. Principles work for everyone that works the principle. It's like the law of gravity, right? The law of gravity is a principle. And since I understand how that principle works, I know that if I toss this iPad up in the air, I don't have to think if it's going to come back down. I don't have to wonder if it's going to come back down. I don't even have to be scared or fear that it might not fall or crack. I know it's going to. Why? Because gravity is going to pull it down. Gravity is a principle. It don't care how fat you are. It don't care how tall you are. I know that if I walk out of this house right now and I go climb on top of the roof and I proceed to jump off the edge of it, I literally don't have to wonder if I'm going to fall. I know I'm going to fall. Why? Gravity don't care how big I am. Gravity don't care how short I am. Gravity don't care how tall I am. It doesn't care what race I am. It's going to pull me down regardless of how big, small, tall, color, whatever I am. Because that's the way a principle works. Principles are universal. They work the same for everyone. Like once you learn the principles of marketing, you don't have to wonder if marketing works. You would know it does because you know the right things to do to make sure it works. Because principles are basically telling you or teaching you how things work. The more you allow your life to be guided by principles, instead of thinking everything is random, the faster you will achieve the success you are actually looking for. Most of you, I hope you don't think success is random. Success is not random. Every time you accomplish something or something happens that benefits you in a positive way, it came because you discovered or landed upon a principle that you yourself may not yet be aware of. Think about principles as God's way of automating things. And if you get involved in this automation, success have no choice but to follow, because that's the way God designed things for his creation. If you flow in the way that the creator created things for creation, which is principles, he created principles to operate the same way every single time. So he doesn't have to jump off his throne and continue to do things for us on a constant basis. No, he created certain laws, and he put certain principles in place. And if we follow those principles, things have no choice but to work out for us. Principles always work, and they work the same for everyone. They work the same for everybody. No matter who you are, no matter how smart you are, or how dumb you might think you are, or how ugly you are, or how pretty you are. Principles work the same for everyone. But here's the caveat though. Principles work for only those who know them, because principles gives us the ability to expect outcomes in the future. I know that the more I understand principles, the more certain I can be about outcomes before I even do anything. Before I even input the input, I already know what to expect in the output. See, once you understand principles, you don't have to approach any new test with fear. You don't have to approach any new venture, any new thing with fear, because you will know it's going to work before you even do what you do. If you understand principles, you don't have to hope it's going to work. You would know it's going to work. How much confidence would that give you if you knew before you did something that it was going to work before you did it? Man, how confident would you be? Where would you actually be in life? Today I'm here to talk to you about the Pareto Principle, which was discovered by an economist by the name of Wilfredo Pareto, right? And he discovered this principle in his garden, right? He noticed one day while being in his garden that only a few small amount of pea plants that he planted produced 80% of all the peas. Like, for instance, if he had 10 pea plants, he noticed that 2 of them were producing 80% of the peas. That means 2 plants out of the 10 plants were producing more than all the other 8 plants combined. And then as an economist, he started to notice even more. He said, I wonder if this applies to life, right? And he began to study things around him. And he noticed while studying more things around him, because he was an economist and he wanted to figure out how could he apply this to the economy. So he started looking economically, and he started noticing that 20% of the people owned 80% of the land. So if you had a 1,000 people at that time, wherever he was, then that means only 200 people would own almost all of the land, right? Just so you can get this in perspective. So the Pareto Principle basically states that 20% of the input will be responsible for 80% of the output. Let me help you again. Let me say it again. I'm sorry. 20% of your activities will be responsible for 80% of the results. Meaning, if you create a list of 10 things, only 2 or 3 of those things are going to be responsible for majority of the results you are looking for. And this 80-20 rule, which is, Pareto's law, aka 80-20 rule, right? It's known as the 80-20 rule. You probably heard that before. And the 80-20 rule plays a part in everything in your life. I mean, if you take a look around you, like If I walk into our closet right now and I look on my wife's side, she has probably 50 to 60 pair of shoes, right? And I know that she don't wear 50 to 60 pair of shoes a year. I'm pretty sure she only wears about 12, 10 to 12 pair of shoes the whole entire year. And you do too. You take a look at anything in your life, anything, there's going to be a small portion. There's going to be a vital few. There's only going to be a couple things that's going to be responsible for 80% of any other outcome in any area in your life. Even in your business, 20% of your customers are going to make up 80% of your revenue. Let me say it again. 20% of your customers are going to make up 80% of your revenue. And also on your social media following, 20% of your followers are going to make up 80% of your engagement. Not like if you got 50,000 followers, only look what's 20% or 10% or 20% of 50,000 followers is what? 10,000? 20,000? 10,000? So if you got 10,000 followers, majority, 10% of 50,000 is 5. Yeah. So if you got 50,000 followers, only about 10,000 of them are going to make up 80% of all of your engagement. Literally. This applies everywhere. But it's not necessarily always 80-20. It could be 70-30, 40-60, 10-90. But all I'm saying is that there's always going to be a small portion of the things that you do or the activity that you input that's going to be responsible for 80% or majority of the output. Literally. Like, even if I used to I didn't realize this till now, but even in school I did this a lot. Like when I had to go take tests or pass tests, I never studied like the whole entire book. I would literally focus on what the teacher was talking about in class. And I knew that if I understood everything that he talked about in class and I found it in that book and I only studied those things, I would pass. And I always did. I always got like a 90 to 100%. And I didn't read every line and try to memorize everything through 5 or 6 chapters. No, I only studied the part that the teacher talked about, and I always passed. And that's what, like, even if you read a book right now, 80%, 20%, the value in a book is going to come from 20% of the content. The value in the book is going to come from 20% of the content. Even though you read the whole entire book. I enjoy reading the whole entire book, but I still understand that only 20% of the content is going to be majority of its value, and the other 80% is only going to give me very little value. Right? Success is nothing but a game of efficiency, meaning the more you understand what works the best, and the more you do of that, success literally becomes inevitable. Literally. But I also want you to think about this. The reverse is also true, meaning that 80% of the things you do only make up 20% of the results. So most of the stuff you are doing is actually kind of useless or not valuable or not really valuable. See, the 80% is where most entrepreneurs get stuck, because this is where most entrepreneurs focus their attention. Most entrepreneurs focus majority of their attention on things that's going to bring them little to no value. I know this, again, based upon experience. When most entrepreneurs start a business, they focus on 80% of the things that's going to barely do anything to get them to a point of making money. See, most entrepreneurs focus on the logo. We focus on let's set up the social media page. Let's focus on an office space. Let's focus on all these things. And then there's a list of other things, the colors and all this. Instead of focusing on the two main things that's really going to get your business going. like product, like demand validation and sales. Like focus on what people want. They don't focus on what people actually want to buy or the problem they solve. We want to focus on the color of the logo. I mean, the color of a logo eventually becomes important because it's a symbol to your business. But starting out a business, the logo does nothing for you. It's a complete waste of your time. I think you should create one, but I don't think all your focus should be on that. Your focus should be on first on the problem you solve and how to push that solution out to the people who need it. But we focus on things that really don't matter much when we start a business. And then once we start that business and we get that business going, we begin spending another 80% of our time on things that doesn't make us money or push the business forward because we're caught up in being busy. Most entrepreneurs focus on being busy instead of efficient. They think that staying busy is the key to success when it's so far from it. If you are staying busy, listen to me. If you are staying busy doing a lot of things that are not contributing much to the success of your business, then you will continue to waste your time and money. And your business will remain in the same place as it is right now, next year and the next 5 years, because you continue to spend your time on things that don't matter. And remember, if you're spending 80% of your time on things that get you very little results, you're not going to look much different next year than you look this year because you're not moving fast enough. You're focused on the wrong things. See, it doesn't matter how much harder you work on things that barely work. Working hard on them things that barely work is just going to make it work a little bit more, but it's not going to do much. See, if you choose to start your day working on low value tasks, you're not going to accomplish much at all, literally. Like you can't allow yourself to become so involved in little things because little things multiply. I don't know if you ever experienced that, but being an entrepreneur, once you get busy doing a lot of little things that don't matter and more stuff continues to get thrown on your plate before you can ever get to the meat and potatoes. That was one of my, favorite saying. But before you can ever get to the things that actually work, you never do because you too busy focusing on the things that don't, and those things continue to multiply. They continue to get bigger. Look, as an entrepreneur, you have to really start treating your time like it's your most precious resource because it actually is. And you have to stop spending it on things that give you very to little or no return. Whether that's friends, like if you need to cut out some of your friends, because if you take a look, if you do the Pareto's law, the 80-20 rule on your friends, only a small amount of the friends that you have actually contribute or make your life better. And the other 80% that you mostly choose to spend and waste your time with actually makes your life worse. Or even social media. If you're spending all your time on social media and not in the books, learning or constantly trying to grow somewhere, or if you're just stuck on TV, then your life is going to look like it looks right now if you don't like it. Look, we all have the same amount of time in the day. Rich people have the same amount of time as poor people. We all have 24 hours. Us rich people have 24 hours like poor people. But the difference is in what we do with our time. But most of us don't use time efficiently. That's why we never grow to the level of income that we desire, or we don't ever get to the life that we desire, or our business never gets to the success that we seek for it. See, there's a difference between being busy and being productive. And rich people know that. Us rich people know that. We know how valuable our time is. And the more efficient we can use our time, the better we know our life gets. It's like when me and my wife I remember when we start understanding the Pareto's law and how powerful of a resource time is. Like we once we figured it out, we started hiring people to do redundant jobs or jobs we no longer needed to spend our time doing, because instead of like cleaning the house, like we have maids that come and clean the house. Why? Because I'd rather pay those people to do it than me take that same hour or 2 hours to do it. And I know that that same 2 or 3 hours is going to cost me hundreds of dollars. But I can pay this person a couple of $100 or to do it every other week and or every week rather than, and then I get my 2 hours back or my 3 hours back from not having to do that ever. That makes me more money. I get more time to study. I get more time to create this content like I'm creating for you right now. But if I'm so focused on these things that takes up my time instead of me trying to become more efficient, then I'm not winning because I think I'm saving some money by doing it myself. No, you're not saving money by doing it yourself. Because in that same amount of time, I can create more value that brings me more money. Like I said, again, there's a difference between being busy and actually being productive. Most people think that working more hours will get them more results. Let me help you. It doesn't. However, it's not about the time you put in. I hope you know that by now. It's about how well you spend that time. See, when you apply the Pareto Principle to your life, it enables you to actually do more by doing less. Let me ask you a question. If you knew the things that actually work, do you think your life will be better? If you knew the things that actually contribute the most to your success in anything, would your life be better? If you took a look at everything you did every day when it comes to operating a business or flowing through life, could you tell me what the few things that actually drives your life and your business forth? Could you tell me that? No, if not, that means you're probably wasting your energy on a lot of things that you could eliminate out of your life. Like, what are the things that produces the greatest outcomes? This is how you got to start thinking to you. You got to start asking yourself, what are the things in anything that I do that produces the greatest outcome? And this works in everything, even dieting. If you want to lose weight, there are not a lot of things you have to do to lose weight. Only one or two things. There's literally only one or two things that are causing you to gain weight. And there's only one or two things that you need to stop doing that will cause you to lose weight. See, I've seen people become slave to calorie counting, right? Agonizing on every single bite, how much the food weighs. This is crazy to me. They spend 20 to 30 minutes in a grocery store just reading the back of two identical types of food just to decide if they need to save 5 to 10 calories or not. Like, is that actually really worth it? Like, really? Like, to spend all that time counting if I need to save 5 calories? See, but once we understand the 80-20 rule, and once we understand the Pareto Principle, then we begin to understand that's not an efficient way to operate. Instead, we start taking a look at the two things that we need to cut out, like cutting out liquid calories, like no sodas, no sugar water, like Coke. And you make a rule to eat vegetables every time you eat a meal. And you do intense exercise that involve you using big muscle groups such as your legs for about 10 minutes a day. And if you do this, then boom, you don't have to wonder if you're going to lose weight. You don't have to wonder if it's going to happen, because you will begin to get the body you desire by doing a few things. Not a lot of things. It doesn't take much. That's what I want you to get. You got to learn to apply the Pareto to everything. Everything. You have to learn to focus on the things that work the best, that has the most impact, even in your finances. Like even applying the Pareto Principle to your finances. How could you do that? You take a look at the things that takes the most money from you. There's only one or two things that cost the most. Is it your mortgage? Is it your car payment? And then see what you do is you focus on paying that mortgage off first, paying that 20%, the 20% of the debt that takes 80% of your income. See, if you focus on, like, if you got a $2,000 mortgage, right, and you make $6,000 a month, wouldn't it be better to focus almost all of your attention on paying that mortgage off very fast? By even if you add an extra $300 or $400 to it every single month, you decrease the term 5 to 10 years. So instead of paying that mortgage off in 30 years, you pay it off in 20 years. But if you double up the payment, you pay it off in half the time. And so now 10 years pop by, you get to save that $2,000 instead of spending it. Pareto principles literally in everything. Before I applied the Pareto principle to my life, I used to spend lots of energy just to go nowhere. Let me give you an example out of my own life. Before I became aware of the Pareto principle, I used to do a lot of one-on-one coaching, right? And then this, like, and this lasts an hour, sometimes 2 hours. So in a day, I would get burnt out after about time I get to the 7th or 8th person, right? So that's 7 to 8 to 10 hours. But once I began to understand the Pareto principle, guess what? That is stopped. Why? Because that was not an efficient use of my time. So now what I do group coaching. So instead of me talking to, 8 to 10 people in 8 to 10 hours, I can now talk to 100 people in 1 hour. Is that not more efficient use of my time? Does it not make me better? Does it not free up my time so I can do more stuff during the day to also help me to get better? Right? Figure out the most important tasks in your business that will grow your business and start eliminating the tasks that doesn't help. Even with your content, start figuring out what content works the best and do more of that same content, not less of it. You don't have to go and try to create and do new things and try to reinvent the wheel. No, whatever works, you go do more of that. See, we get caught up in trying to be busy and trying to come up with all these new things, but we still haven't figured out what works with all the other things we got going on. So what I'm saying is literally take the time out to figure out what works and do more of that. And then after you do more of what works, then you take a look at the 80% of the things that are wasting your time. I mean, that are producing a little results, and you eliminate them. And you start eliminate them until you find a better solution for the thing that is beating the 20%. Like, for instance, if your business sells 10 products, right? Two of those products are going to account for a majority of all of your sales, right? So your job is to try to get rid of the other 8 products and find 8 better products until one of those 8 better products beat the 2 products that sell the most. And if you keep doing this process over and over and over, eliminating what doesn't work, eliminating what is not the best, eliminating what doesn't have the best quality. If you do this over and over and over and over, you can't lose, because you continue to grow and become better and better, better and betterer, for my lack of language. But remember, if you are just busy but accomplishing very little, it's not because you're working on high value tasks. It's because you're working on low value tasks, or a task that has no value at all. The goal is to eliminate what doesn't work so that you can focus more on what does. And when you do this, you become efficient. And the more efficient you become, the more success will find you. That's all I have for you today, because this pretty much sums up the Pareto Principle, aka the 80-20 rule. But that's all I have for you today. And the goal, as always, is to learn at a rapid pace so that you can become a strategic playing player in this game called life. See you.